Hey everyone, welcome to the Wealth Truth About Real Estate Investing show, not the wealth hacking show. Hello, my self isolated wealth hackers. We too at the Zito household are self isolated, sort of. My kids still play in the court outside of our home, riding their bikes with their neighbors' kids, but we're washing their hands and faces when they come back into the house. With libraries and community centers closed, along with schools, the kids are finding it challenging to find things to do. On Sunday night, my daughter's bangs, her hair, the front of her hair, her bangs were getting long, so I gave them a trim. Monday morning, after breakfast, she's playing and stuff. She comes into my office and she cut a whole bunch more of her hair off. So there's a picture of it in the short on the website truthaboutrealestateinvesting.ca. It's also on my Instagram if you want to have a look. Yeah, she took another inch off. Another inch off of what I took off. I took off enough hair so that it doesn't get into her eyes. She took another inch off. I don't know how we're gonna last these 3 weeks, let alone who knows when we get back to school. My feeling is that school may be scrapped for the rest of the school year. I'm not complaining. There's so many worse things that can happen and have happened to people. We're just being asked to stay home in a world where we have internet, Netflix, Disney Plus. I noticed that Frozen 2 just came out on Disney Plus, so we'll be watching that soon. Probably many, many times over. It's always been a great gift to work from home as much as I do. I'm sorry to say it, but these are such historical times that we live in. Just an hour ago, I had to talk an IWIN client and member of IWIN off the ledge, as his parents were advising him to stop using debt he was using to spend on renovating his second investment property, as he's renovating it to add an income suite. They're telling him to avoid risk and to hoard cash. Let's call him Joe. Joe's like a little brother to me, and even though I owe him a duty of care as our real estate client and IWIN member, I didn't mince words. To roughly paraphrase, I told him to get that B rented. Risk? What risk is there if the place is rented and you're cash flowing, let alone making mortgage payments? You want to talk about risk? How about having a single income as a job? To me, that's risky. Sadly enough, his sibling just recently lost her work in the event world. And worry about inflation? How about worrying about inflation if you're worried about risks? Everyone saw the Bank of Canada cut interest rates yet again, and I think there's going to be another rate cut coming. We're going to be back to 2008 emergency levels, maybe even lower. But for those of you who kept reading the news, then you'll have noticed that the OSFI, the government agency that regulates our banks, has reduced the bank's capital requirements of the big six banks, so they can effectively lend out an additional $300 billion. That's how much more can be put into the market. Cheap money and more money means inflation. So does hoarding cash make sense when there's inflation risk? So, economic theory dictates that you grab a hold of your hard assets, or you grab more hard assets. Some gold and silver is great as an insurance. Unfortunately, they don't cash flow. And for anyone who thinks I'm talking crazy about gold and silver, to me, it's no different than having some US dollars around, as well as cash, the paper variety. There is, of course, real estate as well. Which, unlike the other things that I mentioned, is self-liquidating, as in our tenants pay for it. Yes, there are definitely those who are fearful, as they've experienced high interest rates before. Especially I know a lot of people whose parents or grandparents from the old country where they experienced high interest rates and hyperinflation. I personally don't expect it to happen here, as that would cripple our economy and bankrupt a lot of Canadians. Something no politician wants to do. My final words to Joe were that this is the time to double one's efforts. Vacancy rates are so low, I even suggested that he start advertising his apartments right away so he may collect rent even sooner and start making those mortgage payments, hence reducing risk. Speaking of doubling efforts, my team is not sitting back. We are innovating and moving what we can to online, including creating our own virtual tours with permissions of sellers, of course, of listed potential investment properties. Our free training classes of the number one investment strategy will go online. And on a positive note, we were able to make those classes available to our extensive waitlist, as we no longer have restrictions on room sizes and, of course, fire code. There's no fire code issues with an online meeting. Our monthly IWIN meetings will be moved online as well, and we will still pay our AV guy, Angelo, because he's a great guy. He just had a baby, and I've asked him to still DJ the event online. I don't know what that's going to look like, but if I'm paying, I still want him to work. Our coaches will still be showing properties and looking for investment properties on behalf of our clients. Our real estate board was kind enough to send out tips on how to stay safe. Generally, it's avoiding open houses and a lot of being cautious around the use of doorknobs and handrails. Nothing really new. Besides Investor Joe, there are actually a lot of investors who are shopping. I think this is just who happen to be my friends on social media, and also who we're in regular contact with our clients. But there's a lot of investors out there who are ready to shop. And one of our clients was sharing how he was offered a 2.6% variable rate mortgage on an investment property. I would take that all day, every day. For the passive stock investor, there are already many great deals out there. One friend of mine is buying stocks $10,000 at a time each week, as he's a long-term investor, so he's not trying to time the bottom of the stock market like I am. We're just wired differently. He's looking for the long term. I'm much more short term minded when it comes to stocks. However, I am a long term real estate investor. As timing the market has cost, I know, a lot of people a lot of money. So I buy houses when I have capital, and I made a greater effort. Just like I mentioned earlier about doubling down efforts, we doubled our efforts in 2017 when the market was soft right after the Ontario's Fair Housing Plan came into effect. My guess is we'll experience the same very soon as people are staying home and not shopping for property. Quick update on my stock hacking. I'm down over 1/3 of my initial capital. So you'd think don't throw good money after bad money, right? Not us. Jerry's account is now funded. So we are essentially more than doubling down. And we are also now both day trading, which has been working out great as we are implementing strategies for our down market. So we're actually able to make money in a down market, and we'll eventually moving even more line of credit money for bullish trades of Canadian dividend aristocrat stocks and the S&P 500 index. Yes, it does suck to have lost money, as much money as I have. Again, I'm down over 1/3 of my initial capital, so I'm down much more from the top because I was making money. So I've lost that too. So I'm down more than 1/3 in different ways of measuring. But I'm really excited for these next few weeks, maybe even months. I don't know how long the stock market recovery will take, but I'm excited for it because these reversals eventually happen, and I'm excited to ride the wave back up. I missed out on the 2008-2009 financial crisis and the way back up, which I regret. But this is also why we started rushing out the Stock Hacker Academy, as I knew this was coming. This bull market has been going for 12 years, and a correction was coming. I didn't think it would be this bad. I don't think anyone thought it would be this bad, but it came, and I've never been more prepared. I've said many times on this show, hopefully I've said it many times. I've said it many times. I'll say it again. Those with cash and credit win in downturns. And I'll add to that, know-how and hustle. It's why Cherry and I continue to invest in our education and why we continue to pay for expensive coaching to be ready for situations like this. On to this week's show. We have good friends of mine in Andy Tran, who I've been friends with since 2008. Charles Waugh, I was in his wedding party, and Steve Ford, who is a newer friend. He's a client, and he's the general contractor for our new office, the office that we're calling the Wealth Hub. So if it looks like crap, you let Steve know. What a coincidence that they all happen to be real estate investors too. They are a team of 3 who are passionate about infill development projects and are currently involved in several projects in the Golden Horseshoe. Each one brings a unique set of skills and experiences in development, design, and home construction that can help you bring your project to reality. Andy Tran has designed over 160 income suite conversions. Charles has successfully developed land projects, including over 150 houses. Steve has supervised the construction of over 1,000 houses. They know their stuff, personally invest in small residential developments, and they are here to share how all the hows, including the answer of the number one question, the cost to build per square foot, plus all those fun soft costs. Here are the Infill boys. So this is different. We don't normally have 3 people on the podcast at once, 3 guests at once. We've had
try not to talk over each other.
We've had 2. Usually they're couples. Well, I guess you guys are like a couple. So what are we talking about today, gentlemen?
Let's talk about small-scale infill developments.
What is a small-scale infill development? That sounds very specific.
Well, specifically, it's building within the urban built boundary, and we kind of call it like building within the missing teeth. Like as you walk down the street, you see some vacant land next to a house or an old garage or shed, and those are perfect opportunities for building new housing. And we believe that specifically these small-scale infill developments, there's opportunities everywhere for investors like you, ourselves, and your audience to tap into this kind of strategy.
We figure a lot of investors actually are sitting on property or investment properties that they could be sitting on thousands of dollars just by severing off a chunk of their land. So we think it's a good opportunity.
And when we talk about small scale, we're talking about either you have an existing land or you buy a parcel that might have an existing house on the side of a property, and then we sever off into 1, 2, or 3 lots. Like that's what we mean by small scale. We're not talking about rezoning. We're just talking about severing off and creating a few 1, 2, or 3 extra new lots.
So what's a typical example?
So one would be our project in St. Catharines, where we bought a corner lot and we kept the existing houses. We renovated them, rented those out. They were cash flowing, and then we severed off the back, the rear yards, which is around the side, and created 2 new extra lots there.
Okay, not to toot our own horn, but I believe we helped you with that deal.
Yep, exactly. And Erwin, even on that street, there were like 3 or 4 other infills there where they were double lots, meaning there's the house was on one side and the lot itself was double width, so they were able to sever off and build a house on the vacant land right along that street.
We actually had clients that offered on a property near you guys just recently. So what kind of lot dimensions are you looking for?
I mean, it depends by municipality and the area as well. Like our most recent project in Hamilton, that's in the lower city, and we always look at the existing character of the neighborhood to determine what's approvable. So at Wilson, there, our new semis in Hamilton. That lot's only 56 frontage by 40 deep, which would be tiny if that was on the mountain or in certain parts of St. Catharines.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
So we wouldn't be going for that. We wouldn't even propose that because it would likely get rejected.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, if we're looking, for instance, just for like a pair of semis, we would like to get at a minimum 70 feet in depth. But ideally, you want to have at least, I'd say, 80, 85. One of our projects in St. Catharines right now, we have 70 feet deep, and we're having some issues because it's so shallow. It limits our building envelope. Mm-hmm. So, we want to at least have 80, 85 deep for a semi, and for width frontage, we'd want 55 at least, ideally.
It's 55, with the smaller lots. with the smaller lots, you're just really increasing the amount of variances you need, which just makes it that much more difficult to get through the city. The more demands you ask for, it's tougher to get.
Right. And for the listeners' benefit, I imagine most of you who are in urban centers, like around in and around Toronto, you've seen these before. The most common example I've seen is a house gets torn down and then it's replaced by two semis. Usually typical is 50-foot lot, and then you have two brand new semis that are worth over $1 million each.
Exactly.
That really doesn't work in a lot of markets that we invest in. So could be something that works in Toronto because of the land values.
Mm-hmm.
But given some of the markets that we look at, like in Hamilton, Niagara, Kitchener, for example, the ratio of land value versus the overall property value is actually a lot lower.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times, if you're going to be tearing something down, you probably will have to get very high density. A lot of times, a semi, like two houses, is not enough. And, you know that by running the pro formas in that, you can't actually make the money back unless you have really high density.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of investors will come to us and ask us, if I tear this house down and I build two, how much money can I expect to make? And a lot of times, it potentially could lose money because the construction costs are very high.
And increasing, forever increasing. So can you gentlemen actually explain, because specific to your strategy, what's different than the example that I gave versus what you guys give is, like, you guys are cash flowing the entire time. Not the entire time. You have to, I'm sure you have to you're outlaying significant amounts of money for the soft costs and the hard costs for developing, to actually build the building. But otherwise, the term that, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but it's almost as if the lot is free. The lot that you're building on is for free.
Yeah, and for sure. And with our strategy, like, we prefer to keep the existing houses if possible. And again, that's why we try to look for lots where they're kind of to the side, for several reasons. One is you maintain a lot of the value, even if it's an old decrepit house. Like, we can renovate it as long as the bones are okay and everything. We can work with it. And then secondly is that you can get traditional financing. So when we're buying a lot of these infill projects, with the existing houses, we're going for the traditional 80% loan to value mortgages. So we only put 20% down, and if we can renovate it and rent it out, some of these times we're even cash flowing. Like the one in St. Catharines or Martindale, we were cash flowing up to $1,000 a month already. So it's a good investment in itself. Whereas other projects, even if you're not cash flowing, like we have our newest one in St. Catharines, where I think we're losing like $100 a month, at least it's mitigating your costs. And in developments, like, delays happen. And if you have the rental income coming in, then, you don't have that pressure in terms of for time. Like, you can take your time with the development and any delays you kind of bear. So that's another huge plus to having keeping an existing house on the parcel.
That's actually exactly what happened with us in St. Catharines. There, we purchased our Weston project back in February 2019, expecting to build summer, maybe fall 2019. But we were denied by the city, by the Committee of Adjustments, and we actually had to go to LPAT, which delayed our project almost a full year. So thankfully, we had that house that was being rented out that covered, or at least helped mitigate a lot of the costs for holding that property for an extra year.
And for listeners' benefit, what Steve was saying there, LPAT is the Local Planning Appeals Tribunal, and that's it was formerly known as the Ontario Municipal Board, the OMB. And that's where if your decision gets rejected, like we did, our variances and consent got rejected at the Committee of Adjustments, and we didn't agree with it. We thought we had a very strong case because we had full planning support. So we went ahead and appealed. And when you appeal the decision, it goes to LPAT, which is what Steve was talking about there.
And then what was the process to go to committee and then to LPAT? Is this an easy thing, just like going down to the city for a permit?
So I mean, if we go through the process quickly, once we identify a piece of land, we look into the zoning, we look into the official plan designation, we make sure that's all good. Then we come up with determine the highest and best use. Sometimes it might be a semi, or sometimes it could be towns. Then we always have plan A, plan B, plan C. If semis aren't going to work or they get rejected, can we appeal it? Or maybe we can go for plan B, which would be maybe a single. But once we determine the highest and best use, the next step is to create your pro forma. And your pro forma will project your financial return. And if all that is good and we're happy with what we see, then the next step would be to actually create, work on your drawings, get your consultants, house designers, engineers to help you with the plans, and apply for the variances and the consent, i.e. severance, to the city. And then when you make the application, you attend committee of adjustments. If you get approved, then you work towards building permit. If you get rejected, you could either appeal that to LPAT, or you can materially change your application if you want and reapply. So that's kind of the
What was our time frame on? What was our time frame on, say, putting the offer into basically getting rejected by the committee of adjustments? About 6 months.
Our time period there was about 6 months. You could do it sooner because we had a shorter closing. So like if we put an offer on a property and it gets accepted, or let's say we put a conditional offer and there's due diligence, we get moving immediately. So I'm talking with through the due diligence. If we had firmed up, we'll definitely be starting to pay consultants to work on preliminary drawings and survey plan because we don't want to waste time. Ideally, once you close, we submit for our variances and consent immediately. But typically, there's not enough time. So it might take you anywhere from, I'd say, 3 to 6 months to get your application into the city. And then from there, depending on the municipality and how backed up they are with the committee, you might wait 1 or 2 months usually. It could be 3 months if it's really backed up.
And then, okay, so actually, gentlemen, I want to take a step back. Is there a sample project that we could run through some numbers on? I want to give the listeners a taste of what you guys are up to and what the financial rewards that are possible through infill development.
I think what do you guys think? Do you guys think the Weston project would probably be a good one to talk about, our current one?
Yeah, I think that's a good one.
Numbers.
Okay.
So Weston is one that your team found for us. It's in the Western Hill neighborhood in St. Catharines. So we're going through that right now.
Was that Tammy?
Yeah.
Shout out to Tammy DiTomaso.
That's the one that Steve just described about we had to appeal it. So we can run through some numbers there, and that's actually a good one because in terms of our soft costs, that's probably the worst case because we had to pay extra fees to the lawyer, to the planner, to represent us at the LPAT hearing. So that one we bought for $320, and that was a bit of a premium. It's a bit of a dump, that house, but again, we have tenants in there, so we're losing about $100 a month from a cash flow perspective. We got a 80% loan to value mortgage. What does that work out to? Steve, do you remember how much we put down? I think we put down roughly $70,000 on that property, right? Yeah, so roughly
75 plus closing costs.
And then Erwin, we budgeted, I believe about $40,000. So it was $80,000 to close, if I recall. And then we budgeted about $40,000 for the soft costs, which will pay for the planner, our private planner to represent us. It'll pay for the house designer and the plans. It'll pay for the engineer to come up with the site servicing and grading plans. It basically pays for all of the consultants and all application fees towards the community adjustments hearing.
Right.
I would say typically you're looking at probably 30, 40 grand. It could, creep up to 50 grand, depending on how complicated your case is. So at the community adjustments, as we discussed, we got rejected and we had to go to LPAT. So going to
Charles,
LPAT,
before you move on from committee, what was the reasoning? Yep. I want everyone to know how it's, I believe that anyone can get things done if they're driven enough, but I also want people to understand it's It's not the easiest for developers to get things done, even though you guys had approval from the city. Am I correct?
Yeah,
The city
exactly.
gave you
So
approval for
support.
everything.
we had support by the city, but
yeah, so
it wasn't even a good reason.
No, we do everything it takes to try to increase our chances of getting approved. But development, because it's a public process, it's not guaranteed. So, we try to do stuff like talk to neighbors and let them know what our plans are. And we talk to the city and we talk to our planners. And so for that project, we had a full support. The biggest, the most important item when you're going to committee of adjustments is that planning report. And we had full support from planning staff at the city. And we're sitting at the committee of adjustments and everything's going well. And all of a sudden, one of the members of the committee suddenly says that they feel uncomfortable. No joke, there's a transcript. He says he feels uncomfortable. And before we can even rebut and make a response, he puts a motion to reject. And we're like, oh, crap. And somehow, two other members of the committee agreed with him, and we lost 3-2. And it was simple as that, and it was done. So part of why, I was very frustrated that day, and I know several others were frustrated as well, because there was no reasoning. There was absolutely no reasoning given by the committee about why they were rejecting our proposal.
And no opportunity for you to address their concerns.
Nope, not at all.
So you know
what, though, Erwin? But but because of that, we felt very confident that our appeal would be approved, because we had did all our due diligence. We had full planning support. We had basically everyone was for the project except for these 3 members, and the committee was only five people. So it costs us more extra money and extra time. It's going to delay us by almost a year. And our costs to go to LPAT were roughly $20,000. That will pay for the lawyer as well as the planner. And for your listeners' benefit, I highly recommend. Some people who go to LPAT, sometimes they want to represent themselves, or sometimes they want to just pay their planner to save on costs. I highly recommend you hire both a really good lawyer and a really good planner to represent you. Your planner should be the same one that was familiar with the file. But make sure you hire a very good lawyer that is familiar with the appeal process. Mm-hmm. They just improve your chances even further.
And for the listeners' benefit, I want you guys to understand, there's 2 things I take away from this discussion is there is opportunity where people will not go. I'm sure there's some people that would have given up before going to LPAT. Right?
Yes.
And I also
we had that discussion as well.
I'm sure you did.
So, Erwin, we were looking at our numbers. We're like, okay, in this scenario, if we go all the way, invest the money to go to LPAT, and we lose, how much have we sunken in? What's our next step? Do we renovate the house and flip it? So we had all those different things, scenarios running in costs. Exactly.
Yeah, it's very important for us to look at the risk versus reward profile in every situation, right? Because it's never going to be 100% in any sort of development. You're always going to have a risk versus reward, and we're always trying to minimize the amount of risk by making sure that we cover all our bases first of all, so we minimize it and increase our chances of success. And if we succeed, it's a lot higher than what we lose. So this is basically the asymmetric risk that we're after over a long period of time. So if you do enough of these over time, you're going to come out positive. So that's really what our focus is. No single project is guaranteed, because as an example here, we had full staff support from the city, and we didn't have any neighbors that objected to the project. It was a perfect project, but yet we have a city staff who quote unquote felt uncomfortable. Right? A lot of times small developers they'll run up against resistance from neighbors, and we didn't even have that. So these are things that, just blindside you in a project, and you have to be prepared for it. And also realize that, as long as you go in and you put in the good property, and then you get support from potentially neighbors, And the city, you're going to increase your chances and you're going to be successful over time.
Right. Because you did not have this opposition at Wilson Street or Martindale.
No, we write letters and we talk to the neighbors. We let them know what we're up to. And a lot of these times, Erwin, we're revitalizing neighborhoods. Like that's part of like there's great fulfillment to this strategy and what we're doing. We've had tons of neighbors come up to us and say, "You guys are doing an amazing job," and we see change. You know, from our developments, we've seen it spur other developments, and we love that. You know, we're not trying to compete or anything. There's so much opportunity out there. We can't take it all on. And we just see these neighborhoods that we're doing these projects in just completely change, which is great. The one thing I want to go back on to further to Andy's point, Erwin, is that he was talking about the asymmetric risk. And so I want to paint the picture for you and your listeners to put yourselves in our position. So after we had been rejected by the committee on that project, I think we're in it for like $30-something thousand. It was under 40 grand. But at that point, it's almost like a sunk cost. You can't even consider it really. So for us to make the decision to invest $20,000 to go through with appeal, that might net you an extra 200 grand because our lots, and I'm just throwing it out there. Let's say they're worth each $100,000, those two lots. Well, would you invest 20 grand to potentially get 200? Like, I think most people are going to say yes to that because it's a pretty good risk to reward ratio. So, I mean, that was one of the big reasons why
I can make that decision pretty easy. Just 20 grand means different things to different people.
Yeah, I know.
Well, that's the problem. Yeah, I mean, for us who have been doing real estate for a while, and a lot of your listeners who have been doing real estate for a while, this makes sense for them because, you know, they've been in the game for a little while. They know that it's okay sometimes to take a small loss if you're going to get a big gain. Mm-hmm. The only trouble is that there are opportunities for homeowners to unlock value in the land that they have, but they can't do it because they can't afford to lose 20,000, right? So even if there's an upside of 100 or 200,000, losing 20,000 is going to be a big deal for them, and then they can't push forward. And that's sort of what we're fighting with the various policies and development charges and things like that, is that it's driving out a lot of the small investors and homeowners who want to be able to provide the extra housing that is desperately needed, but they can't provide it. And then so the only people that can play are the big developers. Unfortunately, the big developers are not interested in this type of development. It's too small for them, right? They want to do big greenfield projects. They still want to do condos, stacked townhouses, that sort of stuff. And this is sort of the perfect thing for the investor. So, you know, this is something that works very well for investors that have been, in the market for, some time. A lot of your listeners who've been, doing pretty well in real estate for the past 5-10 years or more.
Or anyone who feels prepared to dip into their bank savings for 20 grand.
Yeah, well, it's also.
Hey, don't get me wrong, or when 20 grand hurts, 20 grand is a lot of money, even for us. But I guess what Andy was saying like before is that if you take it over time, and let's say you do multiple of these projects, if you happen to lose all the way, even lose the appeal on one, we're doing everything we can to increase our chances. You hope to be winning the majority of the time. Such that it could be part of the pro forma, and not only that, we also account for it at the beginning. We analyze the cases for the best case, the worst case, as well as a middle case. So we do have it accounted for when we're budgeting.
Okay, so let's finish. We still have to finish off this Weston example. So
sorry, I keep interrupting.
That's okay. So you bought it for. Hang on.
So we bought for $320. Yeah. We spent $80K on the initial purchase for the down payment, closing costs, and whatnot. It was rented out. We were losing $100 a month in cash flow.
It was already rented, right?
Correct. It was already rented.
So no renovations.
We spent it was under 40, but let's just say 40 grand to round out the numbers. So 40 grand on soft costs up to commute adjustments, and then we spent an additional 20 grand. Up to the LPAT, and then we got approved there. So at that point, which is really recent because LPAT just happened in January of this year, we were in it for 80 plus 40 plus another 20. So we were in it for 140 total.
Okay. And then you're good. It's severed and everything now.
Yeah. We're almost there. There's a few other things towards a few conditions that we have to clear, but we're more or less there.
So now we're able to start working on the permits as well.
Okay. Oh, you guys are going to build it. You're not just going to sell the lot.
Correct.
Well, actually, Erwin, like this is one thing. Like another thing that we like about the infill developments is that there's a lot of flexibility. At this point, we have options. We could build it ourselves because none of us live in St. Catharines. We could hire a builder, hire a traditional builder, hire modular, like what Coach did there. You just drop it down like Lego, or you can even just sell the lots if you wanted to. So that's something that the three of us are actually currently discussing, and we haven't decided yet how we're going to proceed.
How much is the lot worth?
It's 2 lots.
I would say
now.
that it's we went from 1 to 3 because we kept the existing house, and there's now 2 new lots. And
there was room for that many lots. Let's take a step back. What are the lot dimensions?
So it's 105 by 70 there. So as we mentioned earlier, the 70 isn't ideal. We had to go through some more variances, and it restricted our building envelope. They're smaller houses, but the smaller houses actually fit in that Western Hill neighborhood. You're looking at like 1,300 to 1,500 square foot homes in the area, so it fits well. But yeah, we're at 105 and 70, and then after the severance, I think we're at like 50. It was 50 something feet along the front, and then 70 deep.
Which, when you're driving by it looks pretty tight, but when you see it on paper, it fits.
Sorry, Steve, you still there?
Oh yeah. I was just saying, when you're driving by, you don't notice it seems a little too small to fit an extra 2 houses. Yeah. But when you see it on paper, it works out.
I remember showing it on part of the tour. Everyone was like, "You can do what here?" What are the new lot dimensions?
Yeah, so they're just over 50 feet. I think they're right around 55 feet around the frontage by 70 deep.
So it's 2 lots?
2 lots, yeah, for the semis.
Okay.
And each one, I'd say, is worth like, it's at least 100. We haven't got an appraisal or anything, but I think on the market they would go for over 100 each.
Okay. So now what's the plan then?
We gotta make a decision.
Steve mentioned permits. So you don't.
Well, so
do you sell
we're
lots with a permit?
Towards our permits. You can sell it for a higher price if you already have all your permits and approvals, because then someone can just jump in the next day and start building it.
More options. Very nice.
As the builder in the group, as much as it's a hike down to St. Catharines, I'm probably on the side of building it, just because that is our specialty, or at least my specialty. Mm-hmm. And it worked out very well for us in St. Catharines. The semi worked out for us well in Hamilton, so it's probably an opportunity that we'll end up building, but yet to be determined.
Right, and just for our listeners' benefit, a quick refresher on Steve. What is it you do? You build around 100 houses a year in your day job?
So I work as a project manager or site supervisor for a production builder in the GTA. I've been working this one company for about 13 years now. So I've got quite a few houses under my belt, everything from being a customer care manager to an assistant site supervisor. And for the last about 7-8 years now, I've been a site supervisor. Anything from building 60 units all the way up to 236 units in one season.
That's a lot of units.
It's amazing that some 2 infill semis can almost be just as much as a pain as 210 units.
So let's continue on with this example. So
I want to tie that up as well there. So yeah, we're definitely going forward with permits. We've already been engaging our designer to go through the detailed drawings. So at the beginning, you have the preliminary ones. They're just not as detailed, don't show every dimension and whatnot. Now we're moving towards building permit. And then at that point, we decide whether to build or not. In terms of the numbers, as I mentioned before, we're 140 in, and now we've created 2 new lots that are probably worth at least 100 each, but let's say just on a conservative basis, let's say they're at 100, you've created 200K of extra value, basically out of thin air. This was extra land that was ripe for an infill development. And that doesn't even include the existing house. Even the existing house, we could get Andy, the secondary suite expert, to help legalize that, or we could sell it as is, or we could renovate it and flip. There's just so many options that we have to make some decisions on.
What are you leaning towards?
I think we were leaning towards building, as Steve said. We are developers and builders. This is what we do. So I think we will probably build those. Not the other reason is these are great. These are going to be fantastic units. They're going to be great rentals. These two new semis. They're going to have basement suites. I know you can't see it. You show it to your list right now, but the layout looks great. We were looking at that earlier. Another thing, in case your listeners weren't aware, is that any newly constructed units after November 2018, another beauty of infill development, there's no rent control. Not at all. And because these are brand new, they command a premium, not only for the price and value if you sell it, but also from a rental perspective. So our last project in St. Catharines, the Martindale one, those new semis that we built, they yield almost $7,000 in rent a month. Those are plus utilities for the two sides, plus basement suites. So for all those reasons, we would love to build and keep it if we're able to.
At Martindale, can you share the rents? Because you guys, I'm pretty sure you guys get more rent than anybody.
Yeah, close to. So there's basically two units. So the two semis with secondary suites on each one of them. In total, I think we're getting around $6,900 for all four units.
So it's 4 units. Quick math.
So two main units that are collecting $2,000 each, and then we have the basement units which are collecting I think just slightly
1,400.
just over 1,400. Yeah, plus utilities, because we have all separate utilities. So separate gas meters, separate electrical panels, and separate electrical meters, as well as a sub-meter for the water. So they're essentially covering all the costs over and above the rent for utilities.
And so, Erwin, that project, as another example, that was a corner that was decrepit. That's the one that was on the Scott McKilvey show that nobody wanted. It was the ugly house in the corner. 2 houses. We bought 2 on the lot, on the corner. And we've now transformed that from a duplex and a single, the existing ones, from 3 to 7 units. And that corner that nobody wanted, that sat on the market for on months, and it was listed, is now yielding almost, I think it's around $10,000 of monthly rent now on that corner that nobody wanted before.
Who found that, the property?
That was James, another person on your team.
Shout out to James Maggs.
Shout out to James. So, I mean, Erwin, like there's opportunities everywhere. You just kind of need to know what to look for. And I mean, the easiest thing is just kind of looking for extra land. That's it. You can even be on Google Maps. I mean, we do it all the time. You look at Google Maps, you look around, you look around for extra land, and that's kind of the starting point. You can knock on doors, like someone could be listed, but I would say there's no hard rule in terms of the dimensions you're looking for. We talked about if you're looking for a semi, try to get 55 wide by at least 80, 85 deep. But really, the starting point, look online. You can see the neighborhood in an aerial view, and try to find extra land. And I think that's already a good starting point before digging deeper.
Yeah, I think it's important, very important to let your listeners know that you have to be creative, right? So a lot of people say that there's no more land to build on. If you just look at your standard 50 by 100 foot lot, then yes, you probably don't have more. But if you have to be creative, corner lots, extra deep lots, wide lots, potentially combining with other lots to build. That's what sort of, you kind of have to have that paradigm shift to realize that there are actually opportunities, but you as the small developer need to go in there and be creative and figure something out with your planner in order to unlock this value. And then once it's built, you could never imagine that a house, or two houses could fit in this piece of property. But nowadays, people don't need to have those big yards anymore. And there's definitely a lot of value that can be unlocked, either with the existing property or, stuff that you can get on the market or off market.
And speaking of opportunity, there's less competition with the strategy. Everyone's going for that.
It feels like everyone's talking about it these days.
Well, everyone's going for that bungalow, and you want a duplex, which is great.
Compared to that,
but there's a lot of competition for that, right? Well, okay, with this one, the big builders, there's no competition with them. It's too small for them. And then for the average investor, the perceived is that infill development is too hard for them. It really isn't. And we go through with them. They'll find that it's not rocket science. But even when we're looking at property, even if we're in competition with a regular investor, remember, we're willing to pay a premium. We're not going to pay the full premium where there's no margin left for us. But for instance, at Weston there, we paid $320. We fully knew that it was too much for the house, which is terrible. The existing house, it's probably worth high twos, max $300. But because we're able to pay higher, we're have a higher chance of getting the property if it's a listed one in competition.
Excellent. So we need to finish off this napkin math on Weston Road. I've been checking out Weston on Google Maps, by the way. Are you able to share the address? It's cool if you don't want to share the address. If you don't want people driving by.
No.
Or
I think
actually, do you guys plan a tour? Do you guys have another planned tour coming up?
I don't know if Andy schedules that. I don't think. Especially right now with the virus, I think we're going to have to put a pause on tours for a little bit, for public health and safety.
Just do an outdoor tour. But everyone stand a meter apart from each other.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Erwin, if you supply the masks and the hand sanitizer, we'll do it.
Man, you know what masks go for these days? Just have like one person can go through the property at a time. No.
Well, I don't know if this is a good time to segue into our training program because Weston
can we finish off the napkin math before we can talk about the
let's
horse?
do that first.
Yeah.
So what do you plan on building this for? Sorry, are you building semis or are you building a single house with a basement suite?
So we're building semis there with basement suite.
Okay, so another Martin. Okay, got it.
It's the same thing we did in St. Catharines at the Violet Street project is a semi, which is a left and a right side, both with purpose-built secondary suites. And then with the existing lot, we'd be renovating as well and potentially turning it that instead of a single-family home, potentially turning that into a duplex.
You have approval to build semis with basement suites? Or you have approval
correct.
for semis?
Well, we put approvals for semis. We provision for the legal basement suite. Right. It's fully finished. It just doesn't have the kitchen. And then once we close the permit for the singles for each side on the semi, then we'll go for the secondary suite afterwards.
Fantastic. And then what's this going to cost you to build these 4 units, the 2 semis with basement suites?
It's going to be roughly, let's say, $450,000 to build these semis.
Fabulous.
Now, Erwin, we go through construction financing. So for your listeners' benefit, that's not money that we have to pony up, all that amount for the construction. Those are contents that we're happy to share with your listeners if they need construction financing. We have a great relationship with Meridian Credit Union and other credit unions as well. And so we put up a portion of it, and the way it works is, like, for instance, we start the site servicing, the excavation, put in the foundation, and then from there, as we incur costs, we can go for construction draws, where they will pay out in draws what we've put out.
Mm-hmm. Now, 450. Now, everyone gets stuck on this number, the cost per square foot. Does this include connecting to utilities? Does this include your time, having a GC, anything like that?
That 450 would not include. That would be site servicing would be separate. That 450 would be purely hard costs, meaning purely the build costs of the semis. Even site servicing would be separate, and it does include our time as well.
That would not include our trips down or our time planning or organizing the trades.
Okay. Let's stay with the 450 then. What does that work out per square foot? Because I know that's everyone's favorite number, is it not?
Yeah,
We
it is.
we budget. I mean, we want to keep it south of $150 a square foot, and again, that's with basic finishings. We do go for a nicer kitchen, maybe a nicer ensuite. We go for stone countertops, but we try to keep things pretty basic to keep the costs down. And because my background is in production construction, we follow that model in the build where the house is never really sitting. So it's getting the build done as soon as possible. So ultimately, we budget for around the 140 to 150 mark. But again, that is not including our time managing the project over the course of 5 to 6 months.
Okay. I hope everyone got out their pens and wrote that down, because I know is where would that rank in your top questions that you get? Cost per square foot.
Number one.
Number one for sure.
But we want to qualify.
In comparison, in comparison. Again, that's the three of us. Luckily, we can split the time a little bit. And like I do have the experience as a builder. As a general investor, you're going to be hiring a builder if you want to proceed that route, which can go anywhere from say 190 to 220 to 230 a square foot. Or going the modular route, we just actually had a quote, a preliminary quote done up by Royal Homes, and they gave us a pretty broad range of 275 to 350,000. 275 to 350 a square foot, which is obviously pretty substantial in compared to building it ourselves.
Whoa! I didn't realize that'd be such a big delta from hiring a GC. Going modular versus general contractor.
Now, Royal is a little more established, so I think their prices might be a little bit higher than some of the other modular builders out there. But that was all in, including the foundation, including the GC, including everything. They do the whole project for you.
Whoa! But you guys are going to build it yourselves if you guys should decide to build it.
Unless we were to find a modular price that was competitive.
Right.
Because we have to take our time into account as well.
Wow. Okay. Anything I should be asking you for math before we move on? Oh, and then rents. You expect similar rents as Violet / Martindale
for these units?
Yeah,
I would think so.
I would think it's probably going to be similar because I mean the market's gone up since then. The ones at Martindale were, I'd say, it's near the top, but those units were bigger and really nice. These ones will be really nice too. They'll be smaller units, but I do believe they'll be approximately the same.
This neighborhood's nicer, is it not?
No, Martindale Martindale neighborhood is nicer.
Really?
However, but the thing is, Western Hill is up and coming. So it's a 10-minute walk to the GO train station. So for that reason alone, a lot of that area there's been a lot of developments around there.
All right, so let's finish this napkin math off. So it's 40,000 your soft cost to get the property ready for committee, plus 20,000 for LPAT.
Yep.
Plus 450 to build it.
Yep.
All right, so we're at 510 before including your time and site service.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to rent this thing out for roughly $6,900.
Yes.
That's not bad.
So once completed, we'd try to pull a refi on the new build to help recover our costs.
Is the new build, is the semis under separate title? Are they both under?
Yes, they are.
So you have 3 titles then?
We have 3 titles.
Yeah.
We have 3 titles, and it's very important that the titles are in different names, different corps, different names, whatever it might be. Otherwise, you'll just remerge again, and you have to go through the severance process, restart that. So make sure that when you do the severance, that the titles are in different names.
These are pretty good numbers. In my professional opinion, I'm not advising nothing, but that's really good numbers. And then what are these semis worth when you're done?
We'll ask you. What can you get us?
I think we'd be up and around the 500.
Well, I know that the Violet could probably go at like 550 at this point. These ones probably, I mean, minimum 525, I'd probably say, but yeah, probably around that range.
Brand new.
So you're definitely
duplexes.
looking. So Erwin, you're definitely looking at least $1 million though between the two semis.
So okay, let's just go one. I just want to go through the math for the listener, because again, a lot of them are driving, or they're on the GO train, or they're making dinner. So we have to repeat our numbers a couple times. So okay, so we're just talking about the incremental cost to build to have these brand new duplexes, total of 4 units. It's sort of like a fourplex, but across 2 titles, whatever folks want to call it. So 20,000 for 40,000 for the soft cost. 20,000 to go to LPAT, 450 to build it, and then it's worth $1 million. It's worth over $1 million afterwards. So
I would put in about another $100,000 between contingency and other costs.
Okay. I was just gonna say that we got add about 100 because that didn't include site servicing and some other costs.
Right.
So then you're going to be in it, roughly speaking, 610 we're at then.
Right, but you increase your, but assuming. Let's just keep the math simple. Use $500,000 each. So I have costs including your 110 contingency at 610.
Yep.
But then these things will conservatively be worth $1 million. So your equity gain is $390,000 before you pay yourselves.
Yeah. That's right.
Okay. So. Okay.
And I mean, one thing to go back on is that depending on how you do your accounting and allocate the costs. We paid $320 for the initial land, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got to think about, is that existing house, is that worth $320? Because in our case, it is not. In our case, if we were to sell it as is right now, I would estimate with the severed land, it might be worth about $250.
Okay.
So which means there's a 70 delta. Exactly. So we need to add that in as well. So if you're at that 610, you add 70, you're upwards of, let's say you're upwards of 700 there. In terms of your costs to get those semis. But as you said, conservatively, if we're worth $1 million, you've now created $300K in equity.
Yeah. So 3K, 300, 350K likely.
Exactly. And like Steve said, after we do a build, if we're holding on to them, we will we'll refinance and potentially pull out the majority of your costs, which is what we did at Martindale.
Mm-hmm. And you held those. You still own those today.
We still hold those today, yeah, because they're great. I mean, they're great assets. They're cash flowing. So yeah, we still hold them. We'd like to hold everything, but we also like to do more projects. So
right.
It's a balance between holding and deploying capital towards new projects.
Right. So someone who wants to make, so this will take beginning to end. How long will this take? How long do you think until you have tenants move in?
These projects, I always tell people it takes anywhere from 1 to 2 years. Within 2 years, we should be able to get it. I mean, we should be able to get it done. In the best case, from start to finish, meaning from acquisition of the property to where it can be rented, like the house is built. 1 year is probably the ideal case.
So worst case, 2 years. You get equity gain of $350, and you're gonna have some very strong cash flow.
That's right. Erwin, the other cost I want to bring up, and your wife Cherry will be happy about this, or it's right up her wheelhouse, is taxes. So when you hold, and this is something that a lot of people aren't aware of, is that taxes are always due, whether you hold, sell, die, whatever, taxes are due, and so when we held Violet, and even if we hold these West, and whenever you hold units, you have to self-assess the value and pay HST on that. And that's significant. So if it's worth $1 million, then 13% of that means you owe the government $130K. Now, it's not the full, there's things that mitigate that. So if $130K is due on the self-assessment, you get a net housing rebate if you rent it out for a year. So there's a complicated formula for that, but it maxes out at $24,000 per unit. So I hope you have your napkin writing down stuff down. But let's say they're worth $1 million. The self-assess is at $1 million. You owe $130K in HST. Then you still could subtract 24,000 times 2 because of 2 units, each of them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now you're down to 82,000. And then the last thing there is you can get rebates or refunds for your input tax credits. So as you're going through the construction, all the HST that you've paid to the trades, the consultants and everybody, you can recover that. And in a lot of these projects, you're looking at $50,000 to $60,000 for one set of semis in input tax credits. So if you do that 82,000 and you minus, let's just say 55,000, then you owe 27. And that's most of our projects. You're in around that range, like $20,000 to $30,000 that you owe. So that's an important item to put into your pro forma, because that's cash that you have to have ready to give to the government. And I mean, one other thing I want to say about that is that the timing is different. Like for Martindale there, we paid out roughly $60,000 up front, for the self-assessed value, the HST on that, minus our input tax credits. Then when you apply for the new housing rebate, the government can take 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. So that comes later. So you have to make sure that you have the capital ready, set aside for that, because you don't get it right away.
Wow.
Those are some complexities. We are not tax professionals, to your listeners. Go talk to Cherry Chan. She will help you figure all this complicated stuff out.
What about the rest of this complicated stuff? Who's going to help us figure that out? Andy?
We can help you guys out with that stuff.
That's where we come in. So,
hey, that's
Andy
Charles and Steve talking. Where's Andy?
Yeah.
I'm messy.
Andy can probably give us a good understanding of what we have proposed and what we've been advertising the past couple months.
You've been advertising something?
Steve?
Sorry?
Did you say something?
Oh, yeah. I was just saying that it's something we've been advertising the past month or two now, is how to do what we've been talking about.
Yeah. So you guys have a course coming up?
Yeah, I think we have a little something that some of your listeners might be interested in. And
well, anyone interested in this, for sure. Because... Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, sounds like it sounds like it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, earlier you mentioned a possible site tour to our Weston project, and as a matter of fact, that's going to be our main case study in our training coming up. Is the Weston site where we did the 1 lot conversion to 3 lots, and we're building the semis. So that site tour will actually be part of the training, but we may have something else as well for some of your audience to come check out the site as well. So we do have a infill development course that's happening on May 23rd and 24th, which is actually a week after the Victoria Day long weekend. We just have to say that because a lot of people do think that because it's on May 24th that that's the Victoria Day. So it's the week after that. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be basically covering everything that we've already discussed on this podcast. And everything else as well to, for the investor to get into this strategy, whether it's an existing property they have or if it's something that they're looking, if they're looking to purchase more property, what are some of the things to identify so that they can maximize the value of that property and of the building now, and then also to be able to unlock value through getting the approvals for an infill type development, by severing the lot. So we're going to be covering everything in that training, acquisition of the property, running different pro formas to really know what the costs are, running all the costs associated with construction, doing purpose-built second suites, basically the whole gamut of everything we do with infill developments.
So who's teaching
Anything
this course?
Anything to add, guys?
Who's teaching this course?
Charles. Charles is going to teach the whole thing.
No, all 3 of us are going to take part. Andy has a strong background in the design and secondary suite business. Charles, obviously, development, and myself doing a lot of the construction talk.
Mm-hmm. And you've actually been educating people for quite some time, have you not? Like you've worked in education around real estate.
Yeah, I try to. Yeah. So I've been doing. I mean, my background with Carson Dunlop Home Inspections is I did put a lot of content as well as trained a lot of home inspectors. So my background is in architecture, and that made a lot of sense also to relay that stuff over to the investing side. So I do teach or guide folks in the second suite investing side as well. I do have a course there that a lot of people have been able to take advantage of and use to learn the second suite strategy. So we're kind of just taking it one step further. Second suites are still a very good strategy, and it's something that can be incorporated with these infill development projects. The best case scenario is for someone to purchase a home, an existing home, keep that house because, for the reasons outlined earlier, it retains the value. You're able to get standard financing, and then you're also, able to continue to collect the rent. Mm-hmm. Put in a second suite on that existing property, boost up your value, and then sever your land, build a new house, and then do a purpose-built second suite. And that's pretty much a home run. And, a lot of people, even within not just ourselves, but people within our network that have done that and have done very well on an existing property. So yeah, we do recommend including that second suite strategy along with infill developments.
And then who's this course for? Beginners, advanced people, rich people?
Charles, you want to answer that?
Yeah, I would say it's targeted for anyone who's interested in development. We're going to make the assumption that students coming in don't have any background in development whatsoever. So it could be a complete beginner, and our goal for the course is after they walk out that they feel comfortable doing a development on their own. And I know, from this call, we've packed a lot of information into kind of 1 hour, but I can assure you, anyone listening to your podcast is able to do developments. There's people in your network who have done developments since we've met, and we'll break that down over the weekend of how once you break it down into the steps, it seems a lot more. It's a lot more simple. People will realize that it's not overwhelming as it may sound.
When is it and where is it?
It will be on May 23rd and 24th. We have not confirmed the location yet, or have we confirmed the location?
Not yet.
Not yet. We haven't confirmed the location. It's going to be somewhere central that is going to be accessible for most folks in the GTA, so Greater Toronto area and Hamilton area.
Is that my
somewhere
office?
That's going to be accessible. Yeah. Where's your office?
Steve, where's my office?
Well, the address, I can give it out. I know it off by heart. But, we're working on a renovation right now at Irwin and Cherry's new office located in Oakville. So I guess it depends on if I get it ready in time or not.
Yeah, so we'll take this opportunity to give you guys the address, the URL for the training.
Uh-huh.
And then also we'll do a special coupon code for your listeners, Erwin, if that's okay. Yeah, so the website is www.infilldevelopments.com. And that's our general website. As a matter of fact, you can go there and download our tools guide, which outlines a lot of the tools that you can use right away to start analyzing properties in terms of the site, zoning, all that sort of fun stuff with the city. You can download that right now. And if you click on the training section, the in-depth training, that will give you details for the course. And then the special code that we're going to have, I'll keep it very simple. It's going to be IWIN, all caps.
Man, you made it case sensitive.
Huh? Am I going to confuse it with other stuff here?
No, it's just I always mess things up. I was typing in my Wi-Fi password and case sensitive.
No, don't do your Wi-Fi password as IWIN.
Very good. So one more time, the URL.
So www.infilldevelopments.com. And that's it. Yeah, you'll be able to get all the information in there.
Excellent. Any other methods for folks to follow along? Don't you have an Instagram account for this business?
Yes, we do. We do have an Instagram, and we have the Facebook as well. We're not on TikTok yet, but we're working on it. I think Steve, the youngest guy, he's working on it. He's going to do some dancing in front of these infill developments.
Yes.
That's what the kids do, right? So dancing and singing in front of our houses. So our Instagram is infill_developments, and the same for Facebook. Yeah, so facebook.com/infilldevelopments.
And you can always catch what we're doing or our most recent post of our builds or our ongoing projects. We try to keep it updated as much as possible to show you what's going on.
And a lot of that is shared through the email newsletter as well. If anyone wants to register, it's through that website. You can subscribe and you keep up to date with what we're up to.
Awesome. Any final words you want to share with the listener? I know it's almost 5 o'clock on a Friday. You young bucks, I'm not sure have better things to do.
It's more work.
I'm gonna go out and grab some toilet paper. I hear that's a hot commodity right now.
If there's any left.
Oh man, I saw pictures of
thank you, Erwin.
pastas are being sold out now too.
Wow.
Just go tomorrow, or hang on, let's just go Monday. I don't think less people will be shopping on Monday.
Well, I think you can go to a 24-hour Walmart, maybe, at midnight or something. Who knows?
Yeah, when they restocked all the shelves. Or just order it online, and you don't have to fight with people for stuff. Actually, any other final words? Steve, is my office gonna be ready for this?
We'll be ready. We'll be ready. As you saw today, we're all drywalled up almost, and we're well along the way.
Excellent. So we'll be at so this training will be at the QEW in Trafalgar. Excellent. At my office. Fabulous. All right,
yeah, we're
gentlemen.
excited. We can't wait to share about it. And I think I should say, I want to reiterate that this specifically small scale infill, severing from 1 to 2, 1 to 3 lots, is very possible with all your investors and your audience. And people may already have the land, they don't even know it within their portfolio. So we're very excited to share the strategy, either through podcasts or presentations, or if people are interested in coming to the course, we'll go into depth there. But just to say that it is very possible. We've seen people do it. We've done it ourselves, and we can't wait to share with your listeners.
Fabulous. Excellent. All right, gentlemen. You guys have
Thank
a
you,
great
Erwin.
weekend.
Thanks for having us, Erwin.
Thanks, Erwin. All right.
All right. Take care.
See you, bro.